How many of you like to sleep? I shouldn't ask that in church because that's what some of you are already planning on doing. I understand that. But I want you to know, you may not realize it, but sheep. We're talking about sheep for this month. We started 2 weeks ago, and then all this month we're going to be talking about these little sheep, these little furry things called sheep. And today we're talking about peace in Psalm chapter 23, verse 2. But sheep, our animals, I should say, have figured this thing about sleep out. They really have. You notice they can fall asleep, animals, just about any time, anywhere. They don't really care. They're just able to do that. For instance, cats. Some of you are cat owners. No, I take that back. Some of you are owned by cats. And you know they own you because they sleep whenever and wherever they want to. About 23 out of 24 hours a day they sleep. And the only time they choose not to sleep is when they can aggravate you in the middle of your sleep at night, trying to wake you up, jumping on your head. Think horses. Some of you are horse people. I never have been, but I'm told that horses just sleep standing up. They're just standing there and they decide, I think I'll go to sleep. And they go to sleep apparently. And they don't lay down, they don't stretch out. They just say, this is fine, and they go to sleep. Think about those animals that sleep for months at a time. Bears and tortoises and teenagers and... Oh no, the bears and the tortoises, they hibernate all winter long. And they, for months at a time, they sleep. And we're thinking, oh man, to be like that, to be able to sleep like that. Most animals in the animal kingdom have this sleeping thing together, with maybe one possible exception, and that would be sheep. Sheep are not such good sleepers. They don't have this thing worked out yet. They're just not natural-born sleepers for some reason or another. In his book, The Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm, Ray Shepherd looks at the 23rd Psalm. Philip Keller, the author, says this. He says, in order for sheep to really be able to rest, to lay down and rest and go to sleep, 4 things need to be present for that to take place. First of all, they have to be free from the fear of attack. They have to feel some safety, that they're not going to be attacked by some kind of a predator. Secondly, they have to be free from friction and tension within the flock. If there's aggravation and turmoil in the flock, they don't rest. Thirdly, they have to be free from aggravations. They don't like things like gnats and flies picking around them and picking at their skin and their eyes, their nose. They don't like that. And then fourthly, they really prefer to be full. They have to be full. If they're hungry, they don't want to rest. And if everything isn't right for them, if all those things aren't there, they'll just stay awake. They will fight sleep, and they'll just keep wandering around in the field, and they'll keep grazing, even though maybe they don't even need to graze any longer. And it doesn't matter how tired they get; they're going to keep trying to stay awake. And when that happens, when a sheep is not sleeping well, some things happen. They start to lose weight, and their coat gets very thin and very coarse. Yeah, I understand that. I resemble that one. And their health begins to deteriorate, all because they don't sleep right. Well, you know who else has much the same problem as a sheep when it comes to the area of sleep? We do. Humans. We're very much like sheep, or they're very much like us. I don't know which it is, but of all the other mammals, we seem to have the same habits when it comes to this thing called sleeping. In order for us to sleep, everything needs to be right. We need to have security. We have to check the locks on the door one more time before we go to sleep. If the door's standing wide open, we probably don't sleep well at night, even in Prescott Valley. We're not too keen on that. And guys, you've probably had it happen where in the middle of the night you've just gotten to sleep, and your wife hits you with her elbow, and she says, "I think the front door's unlocked. I don't think we locked it. Would you get up up and check it. And you say, oh, it's fine. How's that go for you? You just know sooner or later you're going to get up and you're going to go check the door, right? Because your wife's not going to sleep until she has that safety. Not only do we have to have that, we need to have all those other things that are in place in order for us to sleep. In fact, because we're awake at night, not sleeping well, and because sheep are awake, not sleeping well, we've come to an agreement with them, a partnership, if you will. We let them jump over stuff and we count them all through the night. If we're both going to be awake, we might as well put them to good use. And so we kind of come to an agreement on how this thing at night should go. And when those things don't work, when the counting the sheep doesn't work, what do? We try all kinds of other things. A lot of people try to find the ability to sleep in a bottle of alcohol. Sleeping pills and overuse of sleeping pills, eating too much, going back to the refrigerator to raid it in the middle of the night. Some people need to have a television on all night long in their room, or they can't sleep. And when those things don't work, we end up going through the day half asleep. Our skin begins to lose color. We get dark circles under our eyes. Our health deteriorates. We fall asleep in the middle of Pastor Terrell's sermon. All kinds of bad things happen. And they're not really funny. We understand how serious those are because our body is made to sleep. We need to have a certain amount of sleep to be healthy. And yet it's one of the hardest things that we do. You think it'd be the most natural thing to happen, but it's not for so many people, for so many of us. Those things have to be in place. And yet Proverbs tells us that God cares about our sleep. In Proverbs 3:24, for example, he says, when you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. God understands our need for safety. He understands our need for protection. He understands our need to know that the lock is set. And he says, you know what, I'm going to put you in safety, and you'll be able to sleep when I give you that sleep. And one of the reasons we don't sleep well is because by nature, or why sheep don't sleep well, is because by nature they tend to be jittery and panicky. They don't have good self-defense mechanisms, and so they're always keeping their eyes wide open because they don't want to let their guard down, and so they get real jittery about that. And if a dog happens to bark unexpectedly right next to them, they jump. Whoa! What in the world was that? And they're off running and scattering all kinds of different ways because they're just not made to deal with that kind of challenge. And another challenge they face is when the bully sheep comes around. We know what bullies are, right? They're always on the playground somewhere. Well, apparently on sheep playgrounds, there's always a bully sheep there too, and the big bully picks on the little ones, and that causes tension and friction within the flock, and so they have a hard time sleeping, and so when the flock is in this constant state of unrest, no one can sleep. And they sound, the more we get into this, more and more like us, don't they? And I don't think it's a surprise that David, and so many other places in the Bible, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, uses sheep as a comparison to human beings, to let us know how we react and how we act and how God deals with us, because we're so much like sheep in the way we behave. And that's not necessarily a compliment, but that's what it is. And then Philip Keller, our author of the book, makes this observation. He says, in the course of time, I came to realize that nothing so quieted and reassured the sheep as to see me in the field with them. When the sheep saw the shepherd, they were able to relax. They were able to calm down. They were able to get under control. And the presence of the shepherd put the sheep at peace. And they didn't panic so easily. They didn't fight so much. And they were able to lay down in the peaceful sleep that they need. And that's the way it works with you and I. Nothing reduces stress like the presence of the shepherd in our lives. And when you're living your life in close connection to Jesus, you can sleep and you can rest and you can relax. And that's the way God intends for it to be. And the good news is that you can know that everything is all right and that you have a good shepherd. And today we're going to look at how we know that we have a good shepherd and what that good shepherd does in our lives in the area of taking care of us and protecting us and just being there for us. And so we're talking about sheepish, and we're looking at Psalm 23:2 today. And so I want you to say it with me out loud. I know we already quoted it earlier when we quoted the entire Psalm 23. And our goal is, if you don't know Psalm 23, by the end of this 6 weeks, you're going to know it, because each week we're going to take one verse of Psalm 23. There's 6 verses, 6 sermons, and we're going to spend the time looking at each one and giving you time to memorize it, so that if you heard people quoting it today from memory without looking at their Bible and it wasn't up on the screen, then hopefully within the 6 weeks you'll be able to join in and you'll say, oh yeah, I know that now. That's pretty cool. And that's what our goal is, that you would have this psalm memorized in these 6 weeks. But say it with me. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. So what is it that God promises us in this verse? What is it that David wanted us to know that God promises us? He's talking about a promise of living a life of satisfied peace. That when we live our lives in the care of the great shepherd, that we are living a life of satisfied peace. Imagine an image that could be painted of sheep that are out with their shepherd, out with a good shepherd one day. I'm told that a good shepherd in the morning will take a sheep out, but he doesn't take them to the greenest pastures or to the best food to eat. He takes them to the rougher pastures. And he lets them eat there for a while and graze. And then as the day progresses and it gets closer to noon and the sun's getting hotter and hotter, he takes them further away into the better pastures. He takes them into the pastures where there's good grass, where they can eat. David talks about that in the Hebrew language here that he uses. The word for green pastures means that it is grass that is fresh, that it is grass that is tender. He takes his sheep into those places of tender grass so that they can eat easily and eat their fill with something that is going to be good for them. And then he takes them beside still waters so that they can drink in safety. The term still waters in Hebrew is a word that means waters of quietness. He's not taking them to the Mississippi River or to the Colorado River to shoot the rapids. He's taking them to a place where they can drink and be satisfied, so that by the time they get to the hottest part of the day, they have eaten the best grass and they have had the fresh water they need, and now they can lay down and rest in the shade in the heat of the day. That's what a good shepherd does. That's the promise that David makes. He said, this is what God promises us, that He is our good shepherd, and that He leads us to those pastures of tender grass, and He takes us by the waters of quietness so that we can be refreshed and so that we can be protected in the heat of the day. And when life bears down on us, that it's going to do on all of us, that we can have that experience with God that will help us to get through. So how do you get there? Today, I'm going to look at 3 steps with you that take us through 3 habits, if you will, that we can work on this week. And I'm going to give you homework at the end of the hour, just like I did 2 weeks ago, if you were here. And you did bring your homework back for me to check it off, right? So you can get a smiley face on it before you go home? Good, all right, good. Just want to make sure you got it. And then I'm going to send you some more home today, because we need to work on these habits. Why? Because if we work on them every day for this week, and maybe every day for this month, then these are habits that we really need to have in place, not just for this week and not just for this month, but these are everyday habits for the rest of our lives. If we're going to be able to enjoy that life of satisfied peace that Jesus wants to lead us into, then these 3 habits we have to work out every day. Every day for the rest of our lives. It doesn't matter who we are. These are the things that we have to do. So 3 habits today that will lead you to a satisfied life. Number 1, you have to surrender. You have to surrender. It starts with surrender. Surrender yourself to the lordship and the leadership of Jesus. And you say, well, Pastor, I've done that. I did that once. I remember when I was a kid. I remember as a teenager. I remember when I was 20 in my 20s. Whenever it was that I got saved, that day I surrendered to Jesus. I had to yield to Him as my Lord. Not just my Savior. And you're right. You're saved when you let Jesus be Lord of your life. It has to happen. But it is more than just a one-time event. Why? Because you and I have a propensity to take Jesus off of the throne of our life and climb back up on it and say, I'm going to be the master of my destiny today, Jesus. I'm doing all right. I've got some ideas I think I can figure out today. So you just kind of sit beside me here and watch, but I'll take care of it today. You ever do that? Sure we do. All of us do that. And so every day we have to get up saying to Jesus, today, Jesus, right now, Jesus, I am giving you my life. I want you to be the Lord of my life. I want you to take the leadership of my life. So it is not a one-time, the day I got saved event. It is a one-time, every moment. It's an every day, several times a day event. Every day of my life after the day that I trusted Jesus to be my Savior as well. Philip Keller talks about sheep's inability to lead themselves. He talks about having bought a sheep farm and that had been terribly mismanaged. And he said when he got it, he realized that all the pastures had been overgrazed. He said they just would no longer grow grass, and the slopes were just in terrible shape of erosion, and the sheep trails had all been overused to the point that they were just gullies and ruts, and it wasn't safe, and it wasn't good for grazing sheep at that point. And he said it's all because the previous owner took his sheep and he had a field, a pasture, and he had it fenced off, so he thought they were safe, and he's put them in there, and he left them there to graze and take care of themselves. And it seems like maybe if you're like me and you're a city boy, that would be a good plan. Because what else you do with sheep? You put them there, you watch them, and they take care of themselves. Not so much. Because sheep don't take care of themselves very well. They don't know how to lead themselves. They don't know how to guide themselves. They don't know how to lead themselves to better grazing land. They're just not any good at that. They're not built for that. And so instead, if you put them out like that, they will find one spot and they will just stand there and they will eat and graze in that one spot all the way down to the ground until they get into the roots of the grass, and then there isn't anything else. And once they've eaten the roots, once those are gone, nothing's growing. And then they move like a step and they do the same thing again. If you got a whole herd of or sheep or flock, whatever it is you have of sheep, flocks, I guess, they will destroy that ground, but it'll never be useful again. It'll never be a good pasture for them. And in the process, they're not eating things that are good. They're not getting the nourishment that they need. And he said that that's how they would be. That's what they would do. And then he talked about trying to lead them to streams of water so they could drink. And he said, I start to lead my sheep, and some of them would always spot a mud puddle, and they would just run off to the mud puddle, and they would start to try to drink in the mud puddle. Well, it was water, but it wasn't good for them. He said, I'm trying to lead them to a fresh spring where they can drink healthy water, and they're drinking muddy water, and that's what sheep will do, because they don't guide themselves well. Well, guess who else doesn't guide themselves so well? We think we can. We think we could take care of ourselves. We want to be independent. So God, let me be independent. Just leave me alone. I appreciate the fact that you love me, but I'm going to take care of myself today. And we cannot guide ourselves. We're no good at it. We end up sabotaging ourselves. We eat too much. We fight too much. We sabotage most of the most important relationships in our lives way too often. And we run roughshod over the needs of other people. And we make a mess of things. And we create unhappiness for ourselves and for everybody else around us. Why? Because we are too much like sheep and we don't know how to take care of ourselves. And living a satisfied life begins with acknowledging that God knows more than you do about you. And that's hard to do. Man, that's hard to do. God, I want to admit to you this morning as I get up that you know me more than I know me. You know more about my life more than I know about my life. And I need you to guide me. And so I'm giving you my life today. Every day we have to do that. Now, God doesn't promise everyone an easy life, and He doesn't promise that we're not going to have issues and that we're not going to have turmoil. It's going to happen in all of our lives, and we know that. And we're going to get sick, and we're going to have diseases, and we're going to have issues at work, and we're going to have issues with family, and we're going to have issues with neighbors, and we're going to have issues with cars that break down, and houses that have leaky roofs and monsoons, and all that kind of stuff that's going to happen to all of us. But one thing He does promise us as His sheep is peace. He says, I will give you in the midst of all of that noise, I'll give you peace. In the midst of all the turmoil, I'll give you peace. And if you're not experiencing times of contentment and kinds of satisfaction in your life on a daily basis, then God's not leading you. And if God's not leading you, then the question is, who is? Because you really got two choices here. You've got God and you've got you. And you will never lead yourself into times of contentment and satisfaction that is lasting. But God will. And God does. And so you've got to let Him let you go or lead you. So don't get me wrong, we're going to face those challenges, and we're all going to go through those valleys, those dark valleys that David's going to talk about here pretty quick in Psalm 23. But if God's not leading you on some occasion in moments of peace and satisfaction, then He's not leading you at all. So if peace is eluding you, then you can begin right here today. You can surrender each and every day of your life, beginning with this week, to the lordship and to the leadership of Jesus Christ. It begins with surrender. Secondly, you have to identify your green pastures and still waters. You got to name them. You got to figure out what they are. And we're going to ask you this week to begin writing those down. You need to know ahead of time, where are those places of of tender grass? Where are those places of quiet water that I need in my life? Where do I find refreshment for my soul and my spirit and my body? They're there, and you just need to begin to notice them. You need to begin to write them down, because there are things that will refresh you and renew your body and your soul and your spirit. And they're always good things. They're not bad things. They're good things that are in your life, such as spending an evening with your spouse, or taking your kids on a picnic, or reading a really good book, or listening to some really good music, or taking a walk, or eating lunch in a park, whatever it may be. Those things are there, and they're good for you, and they're there for you that you enjoy, and they strengthen you, and they refresh you, and you need to know what they are. And too often we're so busy we don't even pay attention to them. And in those green pastures, it's there that many times God will lead you, and He will refresh you. So every day you should be able to say something like this toward the end of the day: man, perhaps this was a really hard day. Maybe it was a busy day. Maybe it was a stressful day. It was a difficult day. And it may say, God, I think that I must have faced every major problem that a person could face in a 12-hour period or 18-hour period. But I think I did that today, God. But in the midst of that hectic day, God, I want you to know that I recognize those places that you led me to that were places of peace, that were places of refreshment, that were places of nourishment for my spirit and my soul. And I spent time maybe with friends, and I listened to good music, and I had a romantic dinner with my wife. And in spite of all the stress, God, you led me beside a quiet stream today, and I want to thank you. That's what the Good Shepherd does for us. I mentioned time with family and friends, but do you know where the greatest and the greenest pastures are? You know where we're going to find those greenest pastures of the most tender grass that you need? Those are always in the presence of the Good Shepherd. They're always in His presence. That's where you're going to find the most sustenance that you need. Spending time with Jesus in His Word, spending time in prayer, spending time in worship, and meditation, practicing those spiritual habits that are so basic to the Christian life, yet they are so crucial to what we do as Christians and to our nourishment and our health. You spend time those places, and God meets you there, and He speaks to your heart, and He feeds your soul. We talk about them all the time. I told you that our life development process is getting started, and a connecting seminar. It was the first seminar. The second seminar that we've already conducted one of them, we'll be doing another one real soon here, is the growing seminar. And for an afternoon and evening, we're going to be talking about those disciplines. Why? Because you cannot be refreshed without them. You cannot find the peace and the rest that your body and your soul and your spirit needs without those spiritual disciplines. I don't care how long you've been a Christian. You will not find that rest outside of those disciplines that God wants to give you. And so we're gonna continue just to help you just get better and better at those habits that are necessary. So I want you to take some time this week to identify those things, those green pastures and those still waters in your life. And then thirdly, you need to allow God to lead you there every day. You might know where they're at, or what they are, but you got to let God lead you there to them. You got to allow God to get you to those places. And so you allow Him to lead you to the green pastures. And if He's leading you, then He's leading you beside still waters. And so you just expect God is going to lead you, and you allow Him to do that. And that's not to say, again, that you're not going to pass through difficult times during that day. But even during the most challenging seasons of your life, you can count on Him to lead you in moments of peace and moments of tranquility, because that's His promise. And every day He will guide you to a place of rest. And I want you to think about something. And it boggles my mind that we do this, but we do this all the time. We take the best experiences of our lives, those places of green pastures and still quiet waters, those experiences, and we appreciate them, we enjoy them, we need them, and we know it. And what do? We push them away to the back burner of our life, don't we? Think about it. I know, guys, that I need to spend time with my family. And I really want to. It's a good thing to do. It refreshes me. Man, I enjoy playing catch with my son. You know, I need to do that. But, man, I'm busy at work. I am busy at home. I have stuff I have to do. So I'm going to push it to the back burner. And I'll get to it later. Maybe tomorrow. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Oh, God, I know I need to spend time with you today. I need to pray. I need to read your word. I really enjoy it. I've been learning so much from your word recently, God. But you know what? I got to get to work right now. I got to get out the door. And I push it to the back burner. No, God, I'll make up for it tomorrow. And then I get in the middle of the day, and everything's hitting me all at once. Everything's coming. It's noise. It's politics. It's money. It's cars. It's houses. It's everything. And it's all just coming at me. I'm like, God, don't you see what's going on? Where are you, God? Don't you care? Where's the peace? I don't understand. He said, you pushed it all to the back burner. Can you hear me? Of course you can't hear me. Because you led yourself into the turmoil and the peace. You kept at arm's length. It's not that God isn't wanting to lead us, but it's a choice to be led. He's there. And he's saying, I'm ready to lead you. But you got to get past that mañana syndrome. That it's always tomorrow. Because mañana never comes. It's got to be today. Every day. God, I need you. He realizes that. That's why he said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So no matter what else is going on in your life, he promises that he will lead you to those pastures that are green and those quiet, still waters. If you'll follow after him, and you know where the pastures are, you know where he's leading you. You just need to be willing to go and follow him to those places. So today, the part you really came here for, the homework. The homework. Last week, 2 weeks ago, actually you had 2 weeks to do 7 days of homework. Everybody should have an A+, right? You should have it all done. But find it in your program. If you don't have it out already, it was by your sermon notes. It says Sheepish Week 2 homework. And take that out. I know you have it. You can try to fold it up and put it in the little communion cup holder and pretend like it wasn't in yours. We know it was there. I'm looking where you're all. I'm taking a picture in just a minute with my phone. I'm going to see where you're at, and I'm going to. If I find it there, I'm going to come back and say, "Hey, this was yours," and it's all wrinkled up. So go ahead and just take it now. All right. First week, 2 weeks ago, it gave you some assignments besides memorizing. We're working on memorizing. Remember, we memorized chapter 23, verse 1. This week, we're adding to that. Chapter 23, verse 2. So let's say both of those together. Psalm 23, 1 and 2. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Congratulations. You're 1/4 of the way through your homework already for this week. Psalm 23, 1 and 2, all right? But then I asked you to do some things 2 weeks ago. I asked you to first of all, find things that you want to say thank you for, that you want to thank God for. And so you started to write down things that were material things to thank God for. And hopefully you've continued to do that, and you're setting you're writing those down every day. And I hope you just continue to do that for a while. And then I ask you as the third thing to do there is to count your blessings, then to write down those things, those intangible things that God brings into your life that are blessings, and you begin to count those. I hope you're still doing that. Why? Because I wanted you to develop an attitude of gratitude in your life. That you begin to say, God, there's so much I have to be thankful for, and I want to be thankful to you for the things that you just keep bringing into my life. And we all need to do that. And so I want you to continue to do that. But let's look at week 2. Number 1, we've already done Psalm 23:2. Now what I want you to do is continue to do that. So every morning I want you to get up, and before you do anything else, I want you to say, Psalm 23:1 and 2. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. That's Psalm 23:1 and 2. First thing. When you go to bed at night, same thing. During the day, when you think about it, just say it again. They may think you're a little strange at work. That's okay. If you're sitting at a red light, or a stop sign, and someone's sitting next to you, and you're waiting for a light to change, and you're just saying that, nobody's in the car with you, and you're just talking out loud, they're looking at you like, who's he talking or she talking to? You just smile at them, smile, yay, Psalm 23:1 and 2. Lord's my shepherd, is he yours? And then go on, and that's okay. But go ahead and do that so that it gets ingrained in your memory where it is and what the verse says. And then I want you to identify, number 2, green pastures and still waters in your life. You need to begin to name them. You need to say, okay, when I'm doing this activity or when I'm in this place, this is what feeds my soul. This is what gives me the things that I need for refreshment in my life and that bring me peace, a satisfied peace in my life, and write them down. Every day I want you to write down at least one. Why? Because a lot of times we just fail to recognize them. God's leading us to it, and we see a mud puddle and we say, hey, this is good, I'll jump over here in this mud puddle and drink this water instead, because you've forgotten that what really nourishes you is that clean, calm stream, not the mud puddle. And so, if you begin to identify them ahead of time, then when Satan tempts you to jump into one that's no good, you can say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not taking that second best or third best. I'm waiting for the good stuff. I'm going to the grass that is tender, and I'm going to the water of quietness where God's going to nourish me. And so you begin to understand where they're at, and you begin to write those things down so that when God's leading you there, he says, see, I told you I was going to, oh yeah, this is that place, isn't it? I recognize it. So God, thank you, I want to be there. And so I want you to do that if you would, please. And then number 3, I want you not just to recognize it and write it down, but I want you to make sure you visit one of them every day too. I want you to make sure that you're visiting those each day. And so you begin to pray about which green pasture and which quiet stream you need to go to today. You could say, man, guys, you may be at work and you say, I got a really busy day, but you know what? I know that I have my lunch free today. And so that would be a great time maybe to take my Bible and go out and spend a little bit of time with God in a green pasture during lunchtime. I could do that. I could take 30 minutes and go out and eat a sandwich and spend time with God at my lunch hour. So I want you to do that. I want you to be watching for those times when you can do that. And you make sure you visit them. Why? Because that then begins to lead to a lifetime of doing that every day. If you do it every day for this week, and then you do it every day the next week, pretty soon it becomes a lifetime event, an everyday event in your life. And then I want you to list finally one good and pleasant thing that God brought into your life each day this week. So starting today through next weekend, tell us or remind yourself of something good that God did in your life, that He brought in your life each day. And let God begin to make a difference in your life.